Every great story has a hero, a protagonist, one that the story centers around. But every great story also has a problem, and that problem has to be resolved. The story is going to develop the hero throughout the entire thing. It'll show you who they are, what they're like, what they do, where their setting is, and why they're a hero. It will also show you the depth and the seriousness of the problem. It will show you how the problem started and what it does to the people and the place that it affects. If the story is good, only the hero's action will be able to solve and stop the problem. And the climax of the story, its most important part, occurs when the hero and the problem confront one another and meet face to face. I'm here to tell you tonight about what happened when the greatest hero ever met the greatest problem. You get to hear tonight the greatest story ever told. So all semester we've been telling you about this story's hero, this man named Jesus. We told you who he is, that he's the Son of God, God himself, that the entire universe was created through him at the beginning of time, and that he left heaven 2,000 years ago to put on skin and become a person like us. But he's fully human and fully God. We have told you what he's like, that he's perfect, that in every way he spoke perfectly and that he loved perfectly. We have told you what he did, that he went around saying things that changed people's lives, that he did miracles and he raised dead people. We have showed you where his setting is, that he lived with people just like us, that he didn't hang out with perfect people at all, but he hung out with the broken ones.
Last week we didn't talk about the hero though. We talked about the problem that we started. We were made to be in direct relationship with God. We were meant to walk with him and be perfect like him and have all our needs met. But we traded the truth about God for a lie. That lie was that following our desires was better than following God. We ran away from him to do things on our own. And then the world broke, and with that, we became infected with a disease called sin. And because of this disease, we can't be with God because he is perfect and we are not. There is nothing that we can do to cure ourselves of this disease. No matter how hard we try, how good we are still broken. The brokenness we see in the world, in our families, in our lives, are only symptoms of the bigger disease we gave ourselves. The Bible says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that the wages of sin are death. This is the story's problem. Because God is perfect, someone has to pay for this betrayal. And we can't wipe our slate clean. The punishment for betraying an infinite God is an infinite punishment. But all stories have a moment when their hero and problem come face to face.
So here's our hero, 2,000 years ago, late at night, in the middle of this garden. And he's been traveling for 3 years. This man named Jesus. He's been saying crazy things, making friends with the most unlikely cast of characters like fishermen and people who steal money, unpopular women, and people who are really sick that nobody wants to go around. He's been doing miracles, just small things like calming the weather and multiplying food scraps to feed thousands of people. He's walked on the sea, which is pretty crazy. But he's also got a lot of people who don't like him because he's changing everything that people know. He's controversial. He's a rebel. So these people come and arrest him. They arrest him in the middle of the night. They send a band of soldiers to take him into custody like he's this huge criminal. But this man is perfect. Keep that in mind. He's done nothing wrong. He's a hero. You'd think that he would do what any of us would do if he were innocent and being arrested. He would fight, he would run, he would beg, he would call a lawyer. But he doesn't. He holds out his arms and he lets them take him. He lets them hold a bogus trial where they convict him of things that he didn't do, things that aren't true. He doesn't let anyone help. The man who once told the weather to stop storming won't even save himself while he's being arrested and put on trial. He lets soldiers whip him over and over again in the back and in the side with a whip made of rock and glass and bone. This guy that we told you was the king of the universe lets people put a crown of thorns on his head.
He lets them mock him, taunt and spit on him. His dying body carries a huge wooden cross that they plan on nailing him to the top of a hill. He willingly spreads his arms to be nailed on this wooden cross. You can imagine how hard you would fight if someone was trying to nail you to a cross. But he doesn't fight, he doesn't struggle. And this way of death was called crucifixion. And basically you would hang up on this cross for hours and then you would die eventually from suffocation. It was absolutely miserable and torturous. But this Jesus, he was the only perfect person to ever be hung on a cross. He was the only perfect person to ever even live. Why was he the one dying a criminal's death? He is up on this cross for a few hours, and this is what happened. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said to fulfill the scriptures, "I thirst." A jar full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge full of the sour wine on a branch, and they held it up to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And then he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit.
And hanging up there he says, "It is finished." I know what you're thinking. What? What's finished? The main character is dead and he just let himself die. It almost seems like he gave up. That's the worst ending to a story I've ever heard. But it's not. On this wooden cross, the climax of this story occurred. The main character and the problem met, and the hero emerged victorious. This problem, sin, demanded a payment. Someone had to pay for this crime committed against a holy and perfect God. The wages of sin are death. We could never be with God. There was a gap between us and God, and we couldn't fill that gap ourselves. We were hopeless.
But God, the same God who created the stars, Jupiter, mountains, and the ocean, he was not okay with you being on the other side of the gap. He wasn't okay with this problem existing. God has always been willing to clear this debt if one perfect person could stand in this gap that our sin created. But no one could. So God did. He gave up heaven because you were on his heart. The Son of God willingly spread his arms to die so that we could raise our arms in life. On the cross, Jesus let our sin, our debt, be nailed to him. He infected himself with our disease so that we could be cured. He was on the cross for you. He took all your junk, all that you had ever thought, felt, and done upon himself. All that you ever will do when you're 75, so that you could be in a relationship with God like you were meant to be. Jesus died so you would stop filling your heart, that hole in your heart, with broken things, and then start filling it with God. The hero took on the problem. He destroyed it by allowing it to take him and not his sons and daughters, in which he wanted back. God bought you back on the cross. We don't deserve to have the perfect God die for us. When Jesus said it is finished, he said the word tetelestai, which meant that a prison sentence had been paid for. Your time in prison is over. You are free. You're forgiven.
Now, Jesus isn't saying, go do whatever you want. He's saying, I died for you. I did this for you because I love you. I want a relationship with you. I want to make you new. Let me give you a new life. Jesus isn't saying either now you have to go and get your act together and have all your ducks in a row and be an upstanding citizen. Jesus is saying, I know that you're going to fail. Just follow me. Just follow me. He says, love me, get to know me, walk with me, The hero has won. The hero has won our hearts and the hearts of your Young Life leader. We want you to know him. We want you to know the life of freedom and joy that he has for you. I know that it's against everything that the world is telling you, but I'm asking you this. I'm asking you to give your life away. Give your life away to this God who came after you. We're asking you to believe with us, because belief in this gives you life. Belief in this means you have a relationship with the hero. We are here to do that with you, to walk with him with you. He wants you. He doesn't care where you've been or what you've done. It's paid for. He isn't going to hold grudges. He just wants you. He just wants you back. Believe with us, please. Oh yeah. And the hero is still alive.
To be continued.